right, welcome, my friends, to another episode of the Red Delta Project podcast and live feed Q&A here on the Red Delta Project YouTube channel, where we're simplifying fitness by taking a fundamental approach to diet and exercise habits, giving you more power, control, and freedom. As always, I'm Matt Schifferly. Today's episode is sponsored by the RDP Library, plethora of books that I've written over the years, things like micro workouts, grind style calisthenics, and smart bodyweight training. Links to all of those titles in both the electronic and physical formats is down below in the description. Thank you very much for the support. So today we're observing a topic that comes up every once in a while, and I always like to rehash this thing because it's one of the most empowering things you can possibly do in your fitness, but most people completely ignore it, which is what I like to call an objective-based approach to training and diet and exercise. And basically what an objective approach means that when you go into the gym for your workouts, or when you're like rummaging through the fridge and you're like, okay, time to make dinner, you have an objective you're trying to satisfy with that activity. What are you trying to accomplish in your workout? What are you trying to achieve with your dinner? And this is against, or kind of in contrast to, the approach that most of us take of like, okay, what formula should I adhere to? How many sets should I do? How many reps should I do? What exercises should I do? Or when it comes to diet, like what food should I eat? How much food should I eat? How many grams of protein per kilogram of body weight? And so on and so on. Now, it's not that this advice is bad. Far from it. A lot of times it's very good advice. However, we have to recognize that all of us are individuals. We're all different. And not only are you different from me, but our circumstances are always changing. Like your physical, mental, and emotional condition right now is different than what it may have been yesterday. Today, I'm feeling a little bit different today. Why? Because I'm in the process of helping a good friend of mine move his gym. And I'm not talking about a little home gym. I'm talking about a full-scale training center. And because of that, my physical activity level over the past couple of days has been wildly different than what it normally is. So how I physically feel and my abilities and my demands and stuff that I'm getting from my diet and exercise and stuff is changed a little bit. So when we adhere these, quote, optimal formulas of how many sets and reps should I do and how much protein should I eat and stuff like that, it's important to recognize that these numbers are generated off of formulas that are essentially a recommended guess. They are not exactly true, hard, solid, objective numbers that are definitely going to be better for you. And even if they are better for you, they're not going to be the best thing for you all of the time because you're always changing. This is why I'm always using the analogy that knowing what you should be doing in your workouts and in your diet and stuff like that is kind of like trying to hit a target. And not only that, but it's a target that's moving. And not only is it a moving target, it is a target only you can see. So to take advice from someone like me on the internet of how many sets and reps should I do, and are body weight rows good, or should I be doing pull-ups, whatever I give you, I'm basing that off of assumptions. I'm basing it off of general recommendations, and I'm basing it off of little more than just data and basic guesswork. And that's not to say it's bad, but it's woefully incomplete because I don't know you. I don't know your circumstances. And the best coaches, athletes, and trainers out there aren't making their decisions on what they should be doing in their workouts and diet and stuff off of those formulas or what some book told them or something. They're basing it off of what are their circumstances actually calling for, and what are they trying to get out of the training session or out of the meal. And that's what an objective-based approach is going into it going, I'm here to accomplish X. I'm here to accomplish Y. And then you make your decisions of how many sets and reps and what exercises and how many eggs are you eating and stuff like that off of what's going to be best for you in your current circumstances to achieve those objectives. But if you're going off of a formula of like, well, they said that I should be eating 4 eggs. That's the number I got off the internet. It's kind of like me just guessing and being like, I don't know, turn left at the street light. Is that what the GPS said? I don't know. It just sounds right, feels right. Turn left, probably. It's a little bit more than stumbling around in the dark, which is unfortunately what many people do. But an objective approach will help you break out of it. Let's get into some of the folks coming on here on the live feed. Thank you very much for coming on, folks. Adnan coming on saying it's alive. Yes, we are live here. Of course, if you're listening to the audio here on the podcast later on, we're not live, but we do this every Saturday afternoon. Make sure to check out the RDP Instagram channel for the announcements for when it's going to be coming on. Michael on here. Merry Christmas. Thank you very much, Michael. Merry Christmas to you too. Thank you for all the tips and advice over the years. Much appreciated. And thank you, everybody, to the RDP community, Michael and everyone else too. You guys have made this a very good year for myself and RDP. I've had a lot of blessings this year. I've got this great new apartment that actually is quiet and I'm not hearing my neighbors hold conversations in the room next door and stuff. So I can have things like this. Leo's on. How you doing, Leo? So let's jump into what we're specifically looking for from some of these workouts. Because when we go in, and I do this sometimes with people I know at the gym and stuff, and I'll ask them, like, what are you doing here today? Like, what are you hoping to accomplish? Many people can't give me an answer, which is a very big red flag that your workout may not really be all that effective. And one of the big mistakes that many people make, and I certainly used to make for years, was assuming that you're going to get results if you work hard enough, if you put in enough time, and if you follow the right formula. Those are the three big dangerous assumptions in fitness, especially when it comes to exercise, that if I have the right workout program, I'm going to get results. That if I work hard enough, I'm going to get results. And that if I put in enough time, I'm going to get results. These things are dangerous things to rely on because they hold no guarantee whatsoever of getting results, of helping you get beyond where you are right now. Now, it's easy to make the assumption that that's the case because lots of times when we start off in exercise, you're basically going from nothing to something, which means that almost anything you do will move the needle to some degree. So we can be faulty the association of, oh, I got this result because I followed this workout program, or it's because I'm putting in so much work and time and effort and so on. And to a certain degree, you can have a better program and put in more time and work even harder, get better results. But that's a very dangerous thing to come into a correlation relationship with, because then we think, I just got to work harder or I just got to have a better program. But these things have a very short runway. They're only going to get you so far, and chances are it's not going to be even close to what that is. So what are we actually trying to accomplish in our workouts is how we escape those associations. Tebow comes on asking the question, hey, Matt, great advice. So what type of program would you recommend to someone looking to build muscle in a minimalist style with body weight workouts? Well, that's kind of what we're looking at here, is when we're trying to build muscle, what is the objective for that? Okay? It's very simple. When we have a fundamental approach to fitness, the objectives are to satisfy the fundamental processes that are responsible for what we have. Now, unfortunately, for muscle building, it's still a bit of a mystery out there. It's kind of frustrating because every time science is like, yes, we know what builds muscle. If you train this way, you build muscle. Or if you have this kind of factor in your workouts, you build muscle. And then they go and test it and they isolate that thing. And it almost always comes back of, it probably isn't as important a factor in building muscle as we thought it was. We thought it was that way with the hormone spike. We thought it was that way with muscle damage. We thought it was that way with going to failure. And every time they're like, this is why we build muscle. And then they go test it and it doesn't really produce reliable results. That doesn't mean those things aren't important, but probably the best things that we can stand on is saying that, okay, this is probably what's going to have a stimulus for building muscle is, number one, is progression of work capacity. So your muscle only has two variables that you're working when it comes to your muscular work capacity. It's how much tension and how much time. So over time, we want to tell our muscles to work progressively harder from our workouts. So that's one of the objectives that you can go into your workouts. And that's where I know you use the word minimalist training. It's like, that's the beautiful thing about objective training. Objective-based training is that you're not going in there just trying to work your ass off, because when you know what the objective is, you can accomplish it so much faster. It's kind of like shooting a basketball, but you can't see the basket and you're just blindly shooting the ball. And then after like 5 hours, it finally goes in by dumb luck. And you're like, oh man, making a basket took 5 hours. So I guess that's how much time I need to clear in my schedule to make a basket. But when you have an objective-based approach, you're like, where's the, oh, there it is. Okay. And get ready, off the rim, and got it. Good, I'm done. If you can accomplish the objective so much faster when you know what that is. And that's the whole point of my book, Micro Workouts. Every strategy in that book was not intended to save you time. Everything in there is about, this is what your objective is, go after it directly, and you're probably going to save a lot of time. So in the objective of building muscle, we want to challenge our muscular work capacity, time and tension. Okay, so how hard can the muscle work and for how long? And that's basically all there is to it. So you can do that in a matter of minutes. You don't need a long workout to do that. But on the other side, you can work out for hours and never really significantly challenge it. I know, I used to do that. I'd even scratch my head now. I used to have workouts that were 2.5, 3 hours long. I'm like, what the heck was I doing for 3 hours in a gym? Because now if you had told me to work out for 20 minutes, I'm like, all right, if I like drag my feet about it, spend a lot of time on my cell phone, I guess I can. So you can do this in many ways, but basically what you want to do is you have an exercise, you have a quantifiable amount of resistance or tension that you're generating in the muscle, you have an amount of time you can hold that tension for. Good, now increase it. That's the objective. Okay, it's either more tension, more time, preferably both over time. You don't want just one or the other. Endless repetitions isn't going to cut it for you. You need to also increase the amount of tension in the muscle as well. So this is in the weighted world. This is you have a weight and you increase the reps and you add weight and you increase the reps, add weight, increase the reps. So every time you go into the gym, you're like, all right, I got 10 reps last time. Today's objective is 12, right? Objective, target acquired, 12 reps. It's not to work my ass off. It's not to do a ton of volume or anything. It's not to do a certain exercise in a certain way. It's like I did that exercise 10 times, 10 repetitions, like say pull-ups. Now I'm going for 12. Or you could be like, all right, I'm getting kind of high up there in repetitions. Like I got 15 pull-ups last time. Good. Okay, now I'm going to go to close pull-ups and increase the work capacity from a tension standpoint. So when it comes to building muscle, basically your objective boils down to either more tension in the muscle or more time for the given amount of tension. Those are your objectives. That's all you should really care. Everything else is boiled around that. What about technique? What about programming? What about, rest periods and stuff? All of that boils down to, is it increasing your work capacity in some way? Time or tension? Those are the only two objectives you should really care about. Everything else is details on helping you achieve those two things. All right. What else can we answer for us? Let's see. I only have an hour to train each time, so I try to get wasted. I'm assuming you mean really tired, not drunk in that 1 hour as much as I can. Yeah, dude, if you know what you're doing, you could do it in a matter of moments. Like consider the 3-minute strategy that I have in my micro workouts book. You got 3 minutes. Give me as many reps as you can, whatever the exercise is. Go. And that will smoke you out pretty quick. So you get 2, maybe 3 exercises there. Boom, 10 minutes. It gets done and you're finished. And that way you can get as much as you want. Because consider like the tension triangle that I talked about in previous episodes. We have the amount of time, we have the amount of tension, and then you also have, of course, time off, rest periods, right? So in the interest of challenging work capacity, we also want to make sure that you're not taking too much time of resting the muscles, because then you're just constantly regenerating your energy level. And yeah, you're doing more work, but it's not work relative to rest. So you may not be pushing the limits there. That doesn't mean super short rest periods rush through things, but at the same time, we want to make sure that you're not, doing a set and then wasting a lot of time resting up as much as possible when your muscles are now fresh again. It's like, well, it's harder to drive them into the ground. And in that regard too, once your muscle is really significantly fatigued, you're done. More sets and reps isn't going to do it. I always say hitting a muscle in that regard is like driving in a nail. Like you hit it a few times and you do it as much as necessary too. So you could do that 3-minute test and be like, okay, I really drove my muscle into the ground, but still a little bit more to work on. Okay, another minute or so, right? But once the muscle is like, dude, I'm spent, my muscles are spent, I'm getting like 2-3 pull-ups at a time, they're pretty much shot, then stop working out. More work doesn't always mean better progress, because if you're not teaching your muscles anything new and above what they could do, then you're wasting your energy. You're wasting your time. It's like hitting that nail and it's flush with the wood and you just keep pounding it for the next 10 minutes. You know, the carpenter next to you is like, why are you still hitting that nail? It's done. Move on, kind of thing. And that's also what an objective approach helps us do, is it not only tells us how much work we need to do, but also to stop once we've achieved enough work. Because once you've done enough work, you're wasting energy and effort. And it gets us out of that trap of thinking more is always better, which it isn't. Hey, man, I heard once that if you don't have a thick enough rib cage, it's anatomically impossible to do dips pain-free. I have no idea where you're coming with that one. Any truth to that? I can't imagine why that's true. Well, I would say, though, that not so much pain-free or anything, but one of my pet peeves about equipment design these days is so many manufacturers make dip handles way too wide. Way too wide. I go on playgrounds and stuff, and they got those calisthenic dip handles set up, and it's like this wide. I'm like, who am I, Andre the Giant, working out here? It's like, dear God, like shoulder width or slightly wider than shoulder width is all that we need. So I would imagine if your rib cage is narrower, then that's only going to make the problem even worse. But yeah, I can't imagine why that would possibly be the case. And even if that is the case, you're like, okay, I've got a very narrow rib cage kind of deal. But these dip handles, you know, they're too wide. It's like, fine, then do them on, you know, rings, or find some dip stands that you can move the handles closer to each other. A lot of times you can find dip stands where the handles kind of converge towards each other. So you just move a little forward and the hands come a little bit closer. So I'm thinking maybe that's kind of what they're talking about. But overall, I can't imagine why. A lot of times you hear this in calisthenics world of like, oh, I've got this body type, or my femurs are this long, so I can't do this and that. It's usually more of just trying to go around and make an excuse for why they can't do that sort of thing. And yeah, sure, it could be easier or harder, but shouldn't mean it's like can't happen or has to happen with pain at all. And each. Any thoughts on cold showers and muscle recovery? Is just a dumb fad, or is there genuine beneficial about cold showers? I've always kind of been a little leery of cold stuff, largely because I'm from Vermont. I'm from Vermont, okay? I spent the majority of my childhood freezing my ass off. So when people would tell me like, oh, cold exposure and cold showers, this, I'm like, you know, Bane Batman, you know, I was born in the cold, you merely adopted it, kind of thing. In Vermont, that's the way it is. You're cold. You're always cold, kind of thing. Now, there's probably something to cold showers, cold dipping, you know, especially in water and stuff like that. When it comes to muscle recovery, though, we got to be kind of careful on this because what we're doing is, of course, restricting blood flow. So when we're exposing ourselves to cold, blood goes in towards our central organs for protection. That's why your hands get numb and stuff when you go skiing and things like that. And blood flow restriction to minimize swelling and inflammation and stuff. Yeah, good for recovery kind of thing. But there's also some theories out there that you want that inflammation going on, that you want the alarm bells going off in the muscle of, oh my gosh, we just got the ass kicked here in this workout. Therefore, we need to build back stronger and stuff. That's kind of the theory. Same kind of idea why a lot of people will sometimes shy away from recommending things like anti-inflammatories, like ibuprofen and stuff like that. Like, no, we want that inflammation because that's part of, theoretically, the process telling our body it needs to adapt. You minimize that, you could be kind of shutting off the stimulus or mitigating it, telling your body that it needs to get bigger and stronger. But you're talking about recovery, of course. So if you are, like a lot of times athletes will do like ice baths and things like that, like I played a game tonight, I need to be as fresh as possible for a game tomorrow afternoon, then I think there's something to that for sure. It's probably a good idea. But then again, we also have to just ask ourselves, again, with an objective approach of, do you even need to recover faster? Like, is that something you need? Like, if you're an athlete and you're like, I got a game tomorrow, like I used to do this in bike racing all the time. It's like, I've raced my ass off today. I've got a race in less than 12 hours. I need to have as much recovery as possible. Then yeah, fast recovery is important. But if you're like, I had a game or a competition or a race today and my next one's not for a week, don't worry about it. You're going to recover. People sometimes in the recovery field, they talk about recovery like it's something you need to be proactive about. Not at all. If you have enough time, your body's going to recover. You don't need to make recovery happen. Recovery always happens 100% on autopilot. You don't need to make it happen. You're going to recover no matter what. All you're doing with the cold showers and making sure you're getting food right after and stuff is just maybe speeding up that process a little bit, which matters if you need to be recovered as much as possible, as quickly as possible. But if not, don't worry about it. You're not missing out on anything with that. So when we're talking about objective approaches, it's both in exercise and diet. So that's my eat to satisfy kind of thing. Is we don't want to just eat according to a formula, because again, the formulas are little more than guesswork. We want to eat according to our actual needs. And again, those needs are often changing. So when we're eating, we want to make sure, first and foremost, we're eating enough, but not too much. Okay? A lot of times when it comes to the formulaic approach, a lot of people don't like to bother with the formulas, so they fall into the camp of more is always better or less is always better. And these are two very dangerous traps to get caught into, because like with working out, you're like, more is always better, more push-ups, more sets, more reps, more workouts, more. But when we observe fitness from a fundamental perspective, we observe that some work is going to be good, but there's going to be a point where it's not going to do you any more good. There's always a point of both how much you're eating and what you're eating and your workouts and stuff where more isn't going to help you. And now you're wasting time and wasting money and wasting energy and wasting attention. You're putting more in, but you're not going to get any more back. And it goes the other way too. Less is always better. You know, this is why I always have been saying I'm not a minimalist, because minimalism is the same as the opposite of consumption. Of more is always better, well, less is always better. Well, not really. Cutting back on something like junk food and sugar and stuff like that can be beneficial, but only to a point. There is a border where you cross that line, you're not going to get any more benefit. So you're now wasting energy and effort, because adding more of whatever it is or taking things out always comes at a cost, but you're not getting anything out of that cost. It's like going out to, the store and someone's like, okay, this costs $100. And you're like, I give you 120. Okay, great. But it's just $100. How about 130, 140, 150, $3,000? I'm like, but it's only 100. No, you're not getting anything else out of it. You're just spending money without any extra gain. That's unfortunately what ends up happening for a lot of us when we're just doing more or cutting back more. It's like, we're not questioning, but is this helping me achieve the objective? Is this helping me achieve the objective of challenging your work capacity in the gym? Because you're going to work so much, you're going to achieve that point where your muscles are pretty good and smoked, but more work isn't going to help you. You're literally wasting energy and time. And that's not beneficial for you. In fact, it can even go backwards, where it's like, okay, this is $100. Well, how about 150? Okay, but you're now getting less apples. You know what? Oh, how about 150? Okay, now instead of 10 apples, you're getting 8. You know, you're paying more, but getting it back less. It is a frustrating thing. But when you have an objective approach of trying to bring my muscles to a good state of fatigue, or as a next objective, I'm trying to do something a little bit better. Once you achieve that, you're done. Whether it happens in 5 hours or 5 minutes, it doesn't matter. You've achieved the objective. Good, leave. You're done. T-Bolt saying, thanks for the response, brother. You once said you had a friend got huge, just push-up. Yeah, Mark, push-ups, pull-ups, and dips. Did he do endless reps and incorporate weights? Well, he did do weighted stuff, but it certainly wasn't endless. It seemed like a long workout because he would take a good amount of rest periods. But no, I think if you added it all up, he still probably did, 25-ish repetitions total of each thing at the heart. He would ramp up a good amount, though. He would really ramp up. So he would do like 20 sets, 20 repetitions or so body weight. Then we had like a 40-pound vest, and he would do like maybe 10 to 15 reps of each with the 40. And then he would do that with the 60. And then he would get to the real workout where he'd do the 40 and the 60 on. And he would get probably, I would say, around 20 reps total. So, a lot of times you see guys in the gym and it seems like they're doing a lot of work. But when you really boil down to how much they're actually doing, it really isn't more than anybody else sort of thing. It's one of those things that you're always just ramping up to it. Oops, excuse me. Phantom MC, good to see you again, Phantom. Is more volume set is another variation to increase endurance. Yeah, for sure. So always remember that we're looking to be specific. So this is the next thing about objective based training that we want, is remember that training is specific to what you do. When you do an exercise, you're not telling your body anything other than be able to do this thing I'm asking you to do. That's the only stimulus in all exercise. You technically never tell your body to get bigger or leaner or anything like that. It's always a functional demand. So if you're down on the ground saying, okay, do 50 push-ups in 2 minutes, you're training your body, do 50 push-ups in 2 minutes. Exactly like that. So when it comes to increase endurance, the question we always want to ask ourselves is, well, endurance at what? Because it is specific. This is something that I learned years ago in Taekwondo, where we were having trouble in tournaments, having endurance in the ring. And so my instructor had us do bag drills for like 2-minute rounds. You just set up the bag and he's like, okay, that bag, kill it, go 2 minutes. And we just go all out for 2 minutes. And some of us, myself included, be like, but this is ridiculous. Like, I can run 10Ks. Like, I can ride 50 miles. I just rode up Smuggler's Notch the other day. Like, that's endurance. I'm like, yes, it's endurance for riding up Smuggler's Notch. It's endurance for running a 10K, which is very different than the type of endurance than lasting, 3 rounds in a Taekwondo sparring ring. You can be good at one thing versus the other. So when we're programming our workouts, we always want to have, what do I want my body to do? What's the functional ability I need my body to have? And that's what you want to train for. And if you don't know what that is, then leave it in the comment section. I can help you figure it out. But training is always about satisfying a functional demand. We're asking our body to do something. And by challenging that ability, that's how we create a stimulus to adapt in order to further handle that ability. And we want to make sure that we're not just blindly guessing like, oh, I'm sure if I do, running on a treadmill for 20 minutes, then I'm going to have endurance for Taekwondo free sparring, because that happens all the time where people will satisfy one functional demand and they actually wanted something completely different. And they look back 6 months and they're like, I put in all this work and I'm nowhere closer to what I wanted, but I accomplished this other thing. It's like ordering the wrong item on a Chinese menu. Like, I'll have 6B. I'm like, great, here's 6B. I'm like, no, I didn't want that. I don't like salmon. It's like, well, you ordered 6B. Oh, I wanted the teriyaki chicken. Oh, no, that's 6C. Well, you made the mistake. You ordered the wrong thing. And that's why we want to always make sure we're aware of the functional ability that we want to develop. And that's the objective in every single workout. How are you progressing that ability? Leroy, the man, how's it going? Hey, Matt, I'm planning to reach 405 back squat next year around August. My current squat is 345, but my deadlift is only 330. If I neglect my deadlift for now, would that possibly cause an injury? I don't see why at all. Still get some extension work in, but you can do that a billion different ways. You can have kettlebell swings, you could do GHDs, you could do bridge work. You have some extension to some degree, of course, on a back squat. No, I don't see any reason why you need to keep it at all. And that also can be a very valuable thing to do with objective approaches. So the more dialed in you get on your objective, the more you're going to have to cut out a lot of other things. And the more reaching that objective is, the more you're going to have to make sacrifices. So in your case here, 405 back squat. Now, the more we go towards the limits of our capacity, the more we have to cut things back. Okay, so in your case, back squat, great. So that should be a main focus of your training. Can you do, like Murph Metcons and things like that in a given time. It's like, okay, that's great, but time out on that, you're going to have to put it on the back burner, because the more you try to go towards the edges of your abilities, the more of your attention and energy and recovery and all those other things it's going to take, which means you're going to have less over for other things. So in that case, I would even go so far as to say cutting back on your deadlift to a large degree may only help you, because that means there's nervous system fatigue, excuse me, pardon me, and a whole host of other things that deadlift could be costing you, that's preventing you from getting that 405 back squat. So I would still get some extension work in, just because it's a good thing to have in there and keep the posterior chain good and strong. But I would say don't worry at all. If the more attention you put on that deadlift, the more it's taking away from your back squat, especially if getting to that 405 is really going to be at the edges of what your ability is. So your objective, 405 back squat, the squatting, the barbell back squat. So someone comes up to you and they're like, hey man, let's see if you can do 100, goblet squats with a 100-pounder in 5 minutes. And you're like, sorry, man, nope, not today. Why? Because it's not part of your objective. Your ability to hit a 405 back squat has very little to do with doing, 100 goblet squats with 100 pounds in 5 minutes. So you basically just distracted yourself from studying what needed to be done and went off on another tangent there. So stay focused, my friend. Kevin, how's it going? Hey, Matt, if you have a fast metabolism and always been on the skinny side, would be okay not to bother as much eating clean. The calories you need are very high per day. Oh, yeah. I'm not a fan of eating clean for anybody. Are you kidding me? Like, my big thing is I'm very much a fan of eat whatever the hell you want and learn what is better for your body. Okay, so guys like us, like the fast metabolism groups, we can get away with so much more, leeway in our diet. And I really wish I understood this back in the day, because I used to kill myself eating cleans, whatever the hell fuck that means. You ask 20 people what eating clean means, you're going to get 20 different answers. There's no set definition to it, right? And I know people are like, eating clean means X, Y, and Z. And then someone else is going to be like, no, it means this other thing, sort of thing. Don't worry about it. You want ice cream? Eat the damn ice cream. You want pizza? Go right for it. I went out and had tacos 3 nights this past week, kind of thing. Is that eating clean? I don't know. According to some people, it is. Some people, it's not. Who cares, right? Eat, satisfy. That's why I call it eat to satisfy. When it comes to diet, we want to satisfy our 4 primal appetites: appetite of hunger, appetite of nutrition support, appetite of energy support, and we have our energy level up, and of course, desire and enjoyment and palatability of food. We want to enjoy our food. Sometimes that's going to mean burger and fries. Sometimes that means a couple of beers over some tacos with a good friend of mine, which happened Tuesday night. It was wonderful. How did I feel after? Great. Was there any downside? Not at all, except for the fact that I paid. I guess that could be the downside, so to speak, which I was happy to do it, kind of thing. So that's what we want to do. Don't base your diet on all these recommendations. People like eat this way and eat that way and stuff like that. Use those as beginning templates. Like, okay, I started eating this way, and then I started to notice I didn't quite feel quite as well, or I wasn't recovering as well. So I added in these sorts of foods here, and that was a lot better. Good. That's what you're supposed to do. Eat according to what's better for you, not according to what someone else says is better. Because honestly, we're all guessing here. For all of our evidence-based stuff and everything, we are guessing. This is a guesswork. We're getting much better at it. The education side of those education guesses is getting a lot more profound, but at the end of the day, it still is guesswork on an individual case-by-case basis, and we're hoping to get somewhat close to the mark, and then it's up to you to just base off of your own observations of like, you know what? I feel a lot better when I eat more red meat. Boom, there you go. I was having that conversation with a couple of friends the other night. They're like, I don't know what it is, but if I have red meat a little bit in my diet, I just feel better and I recover better and everything. It's like, I don't care what people say, like red meat's the worst thing in the world. Doesn't matter at all. Okay. You eat red meat, you look, feel, and perform better. It's better. Case closed. Right. Or if it's worse, it's not better. Don't have it. Case closed there. Okay. That's what we want to base things off of. That's what objective based is off of. It's trying to have the thing that is actually best for you, not what some people assume is best for you. Been back again. I'm experimenting with intermittent fasting now. I like the idea of being disciplined, i.e., controlling what I eat while also being able to eat what I want. Absolutely. Now, here's the big thing that objective-based training and eating teaches us is that discipline. Now, a lot of times people get discipline versus obedience mixed up. And this is kind of what I'm talking about here is there's a very big difference. I remember one time I was watching a show on, I think it was on cults or extreme religions or something to that degree. And the individual said there's nothing more important than being obedient and disciplined. And it just kind of sat in the back of my mind for a while. And then after some digestion of that saying on a bike ride and stuff, I was like, wait a minute, they're totally different things. Being obedient and being disciplined is completely in opposition of one another. It's because, see, an obedient person will do what they're told regardless of what's actually best for them. Don't eat red meat. Okay, I'm not eating red meat. They don't eat red meat because they were told not to eat red meat. Even though they eat red meat and they're like, I feel good if I'm eating red meat. Nope, don't eat red meat. Okay, I won't eat red meat. Versus a disciplined person will do what is best for them, regardless of if not that's what they've been told. So the disciplined person will be like, okay, I'm not eating red meat. God, I could kill for a steak right now. Oh, I could kill for a burger. I eat red meat. I feel better. Someone's like, but don't eat red meat, and say, screw you, buddy. I'm eating red meat. That's discipline. Discipline isn't necessarily doing things that are hard or that you don't want to do. Sometimes discipline means doing exactly what you want to do. In fact, the more disciplined you are, the more it falls in line with doing exactly what you want. I want to eat red meat. Okay, great. I'm eating red meat. Aren't you disciplined? Aren't you a clean eater? Yes, and that's exactly why I'm eating it. That's a disciplined individual, is doing what is actually best, not what someone is assuming is best for you. And so a disciplined individual has that target acquired on the objective of I'm trying to satisfy my hunger, my nutritional support, energy level, and enjoyment of food. And if one night a week or whatever, and you're like, damn, I really just would kill for some steak and shrimp right now, a little surf and turf, and you go out and you order that and you have it and you feel great and everything, maybe a side salad and stuff, like that was awesome. That's being disciplined. That's being disciplined. So in your world of fasting, if you're doing fasting, let's say twice a week, but the next day you notice you're ravenously hungry and you're overeating, and then your energy levels are up and down and up and down, and you're like, okay, experiencing a little bit of friction here. And someone's like, well, that's the best way to fast. But you notice it's like, well, actually, if I fast once a week versus twice a week, I mitigate a lot of those negative downsides, and I actually feel better, look better, and all that sort of thing. That's being disciplined. Being disciplined means doing what's actually best, not what someone else supposedly says is best, and then you follow along. So always be adjusting, always be observing and getting feedback on your decisions of how are you exercising? How are you eating? How is that helping you satisfy the objective of that training workout, of the diet, of that meal? Are you satisfied? Do you feel good? Or afterwards, is your energy level in the tank? Well, that's feedback for you. And now you be disciplined and say, okay, maybe ate a little too much at that dinner there. Next time, maybe half of that, bring the rest home in a doggy bag. That's being disciplined. True training. I tried Archer's pseudo push-ups for the time. I love them. Best exercise ever. Glad you like them. I wanted to ask, do you still include them in your workout today? It seems you use them for years. Absolutely. To a large degree, yes, absolutely. So I'm assuming you're talking with the hands one on top of the other. Very fun, very effective. I haven't done exactly that one. Now I've been experimenting with a lot more on the hand outrigged on a medicine ball, just kind of exploring that one as I've got a lot of clients doing that. I wanted to make sure I understood it to a good degree, but fundamentally it does the same thing. So yeah, still along that line. In fact, I've been making a lot more progress with it. Really getting the hand closer to the center line is such a game changer for the chest. So that's a very, very good way to go. So you're asking, follow up there, how can you progress them? Well, a lot of it comes down to just how much weight is on, your assistance arm. So when we get into progressive calisthenics and we've got one arm working predominantly harder, then we want to make sure our weight is as much on that arm as possible, so the one on top of it, or the assistance arm, has less pressure on it. Okay? And that takes a little bit of subjective just knowledge and technique and stuff like that. But a way to do that is to just have your palm on the ground or your hand less, and you're more on your fingertips, or you have less of your hand in contact with the support as well. That's another good way to go about it. Basically, you're trying to add weight to your pushing arm. So when you go into your workouts now, there's your objective. I'm trying to do this where more weight, slightly more weight is on my hand. It's like, great, wonderful. You get that in your first set, second set. Oh yeah, that's good. That's definitely more weight on it. Mission accomplished, good. And then after like 3-4 sets or whatever, you're like, okay, now I'm back to where I was. You're done. You got your mission. You got your objective acquired. No need to do any more work. Once you accomplish the objective, you're done. Sean asks, hey, Matt, what would you consider to be proficient enough to start adding weights to body weight movements, primarily push, pull-ups, chin-ups, yada, yada, yada? You can add weight to anything, at any time that you like. Because always remember that when we add weight to an exercise, we're using an exercise that is somewhere along the technical difficulty spectrum. Okay, so when years ago, there was a guy who came to me in the office, and he's like, man, you got to check this out. This is hilarious. And it was someone doing weighted pull-ups on the pull-up assistance machine. So the machine, this is one of those ones you're kneeling on a pad, and it helps lift you up. So you put on like 50 pounds, it's taking 50 pounds off. So essentially what this person was doing was making it easier on the assistance machine, but harder by doing it with a weight vest on. So they were kind of like this. And you kind of had a chuckle, and it was like, oh, that's kind of stupid because they're one step forward, one step back kind of thing. But then again, I thought, well, that's what everybody does. We're all doing that, because if we're doing weighted pull-ups, it's like, yeah, but you're relatively easy because you're using both arms, so it's like this. So you can add weight to any exercise that you like. You can be doing jackknife pull-ups where your feet are up on a bench and have a weight vest on for that and add some weight to that. So weight is just a progressive element. It's not something that you need to qualify for, where it's like, okay, once you get to this point, then you can add weight. You can add weight to anything. You could be doing push-ups against an incline and be like, okay, for whatever reason, you're like, I don't want to do push-ups on a steeper incline closer to the floor for whatever reason. I'm going to add a weight vest instead. Okay, weighted incline push-ups. Now, you could have someone out there being like, no, you need to do 50 push-ups, perfect form on the floor before you add weight. It's like, why? You add the weight whenever you want to add the weight. Just also be mindful that your technique is somewhere along that challenge spectrum, and you want to make sure that you're using good quality technique, because fundamentally, weight doesn't make you stronger. When you're adding weight, the whole point of adding weight is to challenge your ability to do that exercise. So you want to make sure you're at least doing an exercise that you can perform proficiently. So if you're doing like incline push-ups and you're like, okay, I've got a pretty good, decent incline push-up here, I want to add some weight. So you add on like a 20-pound weight vest, let's say. The point of that vest is saying, great, you've got a good incline push-up. Can you keep that incline push-up still good with 20 pounds on? Okay, that's the point of that weight. You're coming all the way down, your elbows are in, your shoulders are back. Can you keep that level of proficiency going with the challenge of adding the weight? That's the point of the weight, and you can do that anytime that you like. Let's see. So going back to objective training, the objective there isn't the weight, right? The objective is a technique. And this is why I'm always saying, like, the point of the workouts and the training, by and large, is how well can you use your body. Okay. When we follow the formulas and stuff, we often make the formula the objective, which is a mistake. It's like, I do this many sets, this many repetitions, yada, yada, yada. That's not what we want our objective to be. We want the objective to be, how well can you use your own body? And by extension, how well are you just using your own muscles? Right? That's the real objective that I usually have. And that goes for everything. That's calisthenics, that's mountain biking, that's skiing, that's, running up a flight of stairs kind of thing. And so when we make that our objective, all the other stuff is to challenge our ability to do that. So the weight is challenging your proficiency of that exercise. You're not going to get just bigger and stronger by having the weight on. The weight isn't the objective. It's really like someone saying, okay, you're good enough there, but can you do it with this extra challenge? Hey, it's like being on a game show, right? It's like, okay, you ran it, through the gauntlet that fast. Can you do it while holding this vibrating monkey that's spinning plates or whatever, right? They're adding challenge for the sake of just making it harder to do it well. That's the exact same thing what we're doing when we're using like weight vests and stuff like that. Mariano, hey, so good to hear from you, my friend. Hey, Matt, greetings from Argentina. Thank you. If I wanted to define longevity as my goal, how do I guide my training? Oh, that's such an awesome question. So the longevity is something I think a lot of us just get more interested in, I think, as a consequence of age. When, you're young, you're like, oh, I can live forever. What do I need to worry about that sort of thing for? But as we get older, we start to realize that things like stress, aches, pains, and stuff like that are one of the biggest hindrances to your training. This past year, I invested quite a sum of money and a lot of time to see a chiropractor. Because I've had chronic issues in my shoulder and in my left side that have come and go for decades now, long time. So finally, I went to a chiropractor under the behest of a friend of mine, said, I don't care what it costs. I don't care what I got to do time-wise. I have to get these things fixed. I got to know what the heck is going on. And I should have done this years ago. And that's always the advice I give people is never, ever deal with pain. Pain is the enemy. It holds you back. It's bad. Get rid of it. People all the time ask me like, okay, my knees are hurting. What can I do? See a doctor, see an athletic trainer, fix pain. It's always going to hold you back. And that's finally what I'm taking my own advice. So we've been addressing things that I've had for a long time. I mean, there's shoulder issues. It's like, yeah, you probably developed that when you were in your, little kid age. I've had, when I was born, my right foot was off to the side like this. My right hip was chronically externally rotated. So that's kind of thrown off my gait, and everything on my right leg has been, well, not very well aligned forever, my entire life. And we're finally addressing that. And it's like, oh my gosh, I can finally, and now making progress in things that I never thought I would. Like I can bridge now. He was like, yeah, you would never have had a bridge if you didn't fix that shoulder issue. You never would have gotten it. You could practice your whole life. You'd never have it. But now, again, I got the experts saying, okay, this is what you're doing in the shoulder. You need to have the objective in all of your workouts of packing it down and getting it back even further. I'm pulling my shoulders back. He's like, no, you're not. You need it back even more. And so on the topic of longevity, what we want to do is minimize any kind of pain and nip it right in the bud. Anything where like, okay, that's starting to be hard on the wrist. Okay, that's getting a little tough in the shoulder. Nail it. Get rid of it. Get rid of all pain as much as possible. Don't give into this idea of like, well, you get older, the knees start going. No, I don't care if you're 105. Get rid of pain. Get rid of discomfort. Move as easily as possible. Even things that start creeping up. Like for me, the reason why I saw him was I was actually having trouble getting down, up and off the floor. I get down on the floor to demonstrate like a sit-up or something. I'd be like, oh, I feel like an old man getting up off the floor. I'm like, dude, I'm 43. This ain't good. No, this is unacceptable. And so that's why I started to finally see him. Now I could just jump down and get back up. No pain, no issues whatsoever. So that's your biggest thing. Pain, stiffness, things like that. Of course, it's going to come about once in a while acutely. You have a hard leg day and you're like, okay, so kind of hard getting out of the chair. That's fine. But chronic issues, get them taken care of. Eradicate them. Eliminate them as much as possible. Eat to satisfy, like I was saying. Don't get into this whole, you got to limit your diet so much. No, eat to satisfy. Eat well, my friend. Satisfy what you need as far as your nutritional needs, your hunger needs. If you have a full dinner and half an hour later you're still hungry, eat more. But at the same time, if you're coming home from work and you're like, I feel like I just don't need to eat very much today, well, then don't. That's fine. And, listen to these sorts of things because it all boils down to taking care of our body, not abusing it. The last point I'll make right there is exercise isn't about abuse. It's not about stress. Our body doesn't get stronger because we beat the snot out of it. It gets stronger because we train it. We educate it. We say, I know this is what you were doing. Now I need you to do this just a little bit better. Just a little bit more. And that's what training really is. The more we embrace this idea of it's all about stress and abuse and making myself, exhausted and tired all the time, that's not conducive to longevity. That's just driving you down into the ground. Brian asking, hey Matt, love your content. Thank you very much. I'm struggling with what angle to take or where to place my feet in suspension training exercises. Row flies, exactly. Any general tips? Oh, this is very good. So this is going along with my theme for this month. All the videos that I'm posting on a daily basis on the RDP YouTube channel is suspension exercises to go with the book that I'm working on, all about suspension calisthenics, which is by far my most favorite piece of exercise equipment. So feet placement, think about it this way, is the wider your feet are, the more stable your base is. Suspension exercises are inherently unstable. All right, so you got the bands and stuff, and they're a little unstable. So the more narrow you place your feet, the less stability you have. So the more you got to use your muscles to stabilize. So if you're doing, let's say, like a rear fly, and your feet are together, that's less stable. If you're feeling like, okay, I'm kind of tilting a little, I'm a little over, shoulder width, place the feet shoulder width, give yourself a little bit more stability. Angle wherever you feel comfortable, right? When you're squatting, you want your knees going over your toes, of course. And just play with that. Wider is more stable, narrower is less stable, and experiment with that for what feels best and strongest to you. True training. I think I'm coming in on the last part of something. Sorry about that one. Leroy, coming on. Bought some knee wraps and lifting belt last week, and I find it increased my squat weight by a lot. Absolutely. You increase your stability. Remember, strength comes from stability. You're only as strong as you are stable. Anytime you want to get stronger, you got to get more stable. So the wraps and the belt and stuff are helping you with stability. Stability, it gets more stable. Strength is just coming as much as an echo out of a canyon. How can I implement my equipment to further increase my squat strength while not relying on it all the time? So what you want to do is be mindful of, because basically what the belt is doing and what the knee wraps are doing is they're doing a job your muscles are supposed to be doing. That's what external support is. And that's not just wraps. That's like when you do like the knee raise station at the gym where you're in like the little captain's chair, and you have your back against the pad and you're lifting up your knees. I always instruct people, get your back off the pad so that way your back is engaged. External supports are doing the job your muscles are supposed to be doing. And sometimes there is a time and a place to use those things if your muscles just aren't up to the task. Or in like sometimes in the powerlifting world, you're just not going to have the muscles adequately geared up for that because powerlifting exercises aren't exactly the most natural thing in the world. Back squatting 405 pounds, it's not a natural amount of resistance that we humans have in the natural world. So sometimes that stuff is just, well, I'm not doing a natural thing. I'm going to need some support because my body the human body didn't evolve to do it in that way. So you can use that. And it may very well be the case of I'm not going to get to 405 unless I have a belt on. It could just be the cards you've been dealt with, as far as your core structural stability and stuff. But that's essentially what you want to be looking at is, okay, these knee wraps are supporting my knees. The muscles that support my knees, particularly the ones around your hips, ironically enough, why aren't they doing the job as well as they should be? What am I not using enough? Lots of times that's hip muscles. Investigate that. So you can do kind of like an A/B split test where it's like you squat with the wraps on, you squat without them on. It's like, okay, so what doesn't feel stable? Where's the instability coming from? And then strengthen those muscles, and then that's good. But then you're always going to be more stable with them, of course. So then it's like, okay, now they're more stable and the process can continue. But yeah, basically external support is basically doing the job muscle should be doing. Excuse me. Justin Stone asking, hey, Matt, my weak link is below the knees, calves, tibialis, ankles, etc. Any tips for bulletproof lower legs? Yes, freestanding calf raises, my friend. So a lot of times when we do calf raises, the mistake is we're like leaning on equipment, or we got the Smith machine going on and we're doing calf raises and it's all supportive. Again, support is coming from an external thing. So there's less support from internal stability, your body. So try doing calf raises, total free form. You're not touching anything, maybe lightly touching a wall if you're like doing single leg calf raises kind of thing. That might be a good way, but freestanding. So quads are on, hips are on, hamstring. Remember, calf raises are a full leg exercise. Every muscle in your lower body should be working during a calf raise. Don't isolate, integrate. So everything's back tight and you're just coming up, and that's where you're going to get that stability in your calves, but it's also coming from everything else. We don't have stability in one area. We have stability everywhere. It's either everywhere or nowhere. So you have stability in your hips, stability in your quads, your hamstrings, your core, keep your glutes tight, et cetera, and do it totally free form. So you have no support at all. It's a fun challenge. And then if you want to add weight, just dumbbells by your side or weight vest and things like that. Good question there. That's really smart, Justin. Very, very smart. Excuse me. Pedro, coming on. With which exercise would you replace weighted pistol squats for a home workout routine? So basically, here we go again. Objective is, what are we doing? So we've got an exercise. We want to accomplish similar things. I don't know why we're replacing it. So that's part of it. It's like, well, why are we replacing it? What's bad? What's wrong with the weighted pistol squat? So that's the one thing, is because maybe you have an injury. Maybe there's an issue with that we need to roll around kind of thing. If I don't know what that is, we don't have an objective. But I would say you're still wanting the squat movement pattern. So any exercise that's squat movement, lunges, step ups, shrimp squats are a good fan of mine, or a favorite of mine. Anything with a squat movement pattern going to fit the bill of getting the job done. And then it would be, well, okay, that's the objective of that movement pattern. Then what type of training, or what's the objective of that movement? Are we trying to do stability, mobility, strength, endurance? What are you hoping to get out of the exercise? Because that's what we always want to be asking ourselves. What am I getting out of the exercise? What's the purpose of this? Every workout we ever do, we want to look at that exercise kind of like an employee in a company that's barely getting by. Like, okay, what's your job here? And are you worth the pay that we're giving you? Are you worth the time, worth the energy, worth the effort? And so that's why I don't have a lot of patience for a lot of fad exercises, and people are doing things in the gym. And I ask myself, if they never did that, would they miss it? In every exercise, every rep, every set should be extremely valuable. Like, I really need to be doing this. If the answer is, nah, I probably don't have to do this, get rid of it. It's wasting time. It's stealing from you. It's like embezzling from that company. The employees just sitting around drinking coffee all day and getting paid, and they're taking money from the till and everything like that. Exercise can steal from you. It steals energy. It steals time. It steals attention. Don't ever assume that an exercise is always going to be worth it. Lots of times it's not. A lot of times it's not. And if it's not worth it, it is literally taking away from you. It is stealing valuable resources from you, which is why you don't want to waste your time and energy with it. But following up, Pedro says, replace it because I don't have more weight to continue progressing. Oh, okay, very good. So I'm assuming what we're trying to progress is the tension component of your work capacity. Good. Now we have something we can direct our training with. So we want more tension in the muscles. Oh, that's easy. We've got a million ways of doing that. So a lot of times my experience has been that when people go from pistol squats to shrimp squats, that makes the muscles work harder. It's weird. Again, it's specific. There's no such thing as just being strong at everything. When you're used to doing pistol squats, change to shrimp squats and they kick your legs ass. If you're used to shrimp squats, go to pistol squats. And I got videos on the RDP channel. Shrimp squats are the main exercise in the grind style calisthenics workout program. If you check out the book down below and stuff, that's all in there. So I would go with shrimp squats. Also, you can still make pistols a lot harder. Where's the weight? First off, because a lot of times when people do weighted pistol squats, the weight's out here. Bring it to your chest, or don't even have weight. Fold your arms like this. Fold them like that and do a pistol squat. You're going to have a lot more challenge doing it that way. The more weight you have forward, the easier it is. So bring the weight back, and that's going to be much more challenging. So that's what I would do, is bring your hands in closer, assuming that's not what you're doing. If you're doing them with, your hands folded and weight vests and kettlebells to the side and stuff, then that may be time for the shrimp squat and so forth. Excuse me. I don't know. It's very coffee today. Here's an interesting one. I haven't filled this one, and we'll wrap this one up here. How many push-ups equal one dip? No idea. Because it depends on the push-up, depends on the dip. We're talking close push-ups, wide pull-ups, push-ups, incline push-ups, halfway down push-ups. People, again, assume it's like there's a standard push-up. There isn't. There's push-ups that equal 20 dips. for one push-up. There's also push-ups, there's 40 push-ups to one dip. So it depends on the push-up. But the way you want to kind of look at this is they're both the same thing. They're fundamentally pushing movements. So it's just which pushing movement and how difficult is it? So different push-ups, different levels of difficulty. So that way you want to just say, okay, pushing with a given amount of resistance. And that's all there is to that. I mean, we can make dips harder too, with the range of motion and stuff like that. Pedro's following up again. Oh, I have been putting the weight on my chest. Oh, very good. Would use other ways of pistols to make it harder. So yeah, weight to the chest. I'm assuming you're on the floor. Look also to range of motion, and are you bouncing out of the position and so forth as well. So look to the technique, but yeah, give the shrimp squats a shot. And then you got jumbo shrimp squats, and then you've got weighted jumbo shrimp squats, and so on and so forth. Last question here from Drew Training to finish off. What's your thoughts on the way of training? I do a few sets, then wait a while, do a few more. I mean, hours sometimes. I do to be honest with you, it's like, well, what's your objective? That's always what it boils down to. What's the objective? What are you trying to accomplish with that? Because every workout program is perfect. Every exercise is perfect, because there's no such thing as an ineffective set, rep, or workout. Everything you do is 100% effective 100% of the time. The challenge is, does it align with what you want to get out of it? Because again, Mother Nature is always 100% accurate and effective. No matter what you do, remember, you're training your body to do the thing you're asking it to do. That's fundamentally what all training is. So in this case, doing a few sets, then waiting a while, doing a few more, and waiting a while and stuff, that's training your body to say, I need you to do a few sets, wait a while, and then do a few more sets throughout the day. So I could push harder in each set. That's what you're training your body to do. If that's your objective, 100% you're rocking. Okay? If that's not your objective, then we need to get clear on what is the objective you're going after that, and is that conducive for it? That's what we want to look for. But yeah, always remember that for the most part, we humans, we're in our own imaginative little make-believe world when it comes to fitness. Mother Nature doesn't care at all about what we want to get out of exercise. Doesn't care about weight loss, doesn't care about building muscle, doesn't care about abs and stuff. So we go to the gym and we're like, I'm doing this to accomplish X, Y, and Z, and nothing you're doing has any bearing on those things whatsoever. Most of our objectives are completely imaginary. They're completely made up, and they have no basis in reality whatsoever, because all Mother Nature cares about is, what do you need me to do? I'm on this treadmill and I'm running at an incline of 2.5% for 5 minutes. That's all Mother Nature understands. You need to be on a treadmill at 2.5% incline and run for 5 minutes. Mission accomplished. That's all Mother Nature cares is, do you want me to do this thing? That's as far as it goes. All the stuff of build and shred and tone, and I want to look this way, and I want to be able to do this, that's completely imaginary. We 100% made all of that up. It has no basis whatsoever in reality. It's a subtle correlation, yes, but there's no do X and get result Y unless that result is being able to do X. That's the only result that Mother Nature really understands. And it has 100% track record of always being successful every single time. Let's see. What the hell? A couple more. When's the new book coming out? Hopefully, maybe February, maybe late January. I'm putting a real rush on it right now. Let's see. Some good conversations going on back and forth. I like that. I like that a lot, folks. But unfortunately, I do have to go because I got to help my friend move his gym. That's keep going. I got to build myself a cable machine that needs building. So I really appreciate everybody coming on. As always, thank you so much. Remember all of the resources I talked about, as well as the RDP library down below in the description. Check out those books. Make good holiday gifts. Shameless plug there. But they're also available in both PDF, Kindle, and the physical formats as well. And we'll do this again next week because it's always a lot of fun for me. And otherwise, if you need to reach out to me, reddeltaproject@gmail.com is the best way to do that as well. Talk to you folks next week. Till then, be fit and live free.